welcome back. Today we are going to talk about my worst books of 2024. These are going to be all the books that I read in 2024 that I thought were the worst of the bunch. And just to give the general disclaimer, as I feel like I have to, just because I didn't like these books and I think they are my worst books of the year does not mean that they're inherently bad books. I recognize that there is a book for everyone, and I really hope that these books have found their audience, and some I know have, because some of these I know are an unpopular opinion on my part. So I'm so sorry if one of these is one of your favorite books. These just didn't work for me, and I'm going to talk about them. So I have 7 books to talk about, and the first ones I'm going to talk about were all 2-star reads. I'm going to start with The Neighbor's Secret by Allison Heller, and this was a Book of the Month pick a couple of years ago, I think. I got it in trade credit at a used bookstore, so luckily I didn't pay any money for it. But it's supposed to be a kind of Desperate Housewives type of vibe. Everybody that lives on this street, and they have this community book club and these community meetings that they go to, and they have potlucks and get-togethers, and it's all about literally the neighbor's secrets. And there's somebody going around and vandalizing houses in the neighborhood. They're trying to figure out who it is and why they're doing it. All the neighbors start pointing fingers at each other thinking, oh, your teenager did it, or your teenager did it. And nobody has many good reasons as to why they think other people do it other than they don't like each other. It was very silly, but it was also very boring, and I just could not get into it. It would not hold my attention. I powered through it because I was reading it for, I think, Catch-Up-A-Thon, but literally nothing happened. And I'm sure there's plenty of other domestic mysteries that you could find that are way better than this one. So we have Murder in the Family by Kara Hunter, and I believe I read this for the X's and O's readathon last year, and I've heard people rave about this book. It has some mixed media, and it's supposed to be about a group of people trying to solve a mystery. Years ago, a man fell dead in his yard, and they don't know why. And the only survivor is his, I believe it's like his stepson or his son. And so the son has found all of these people that are supposed to be the best in their field. He has a detective, a cop, a psychiatrist, an investigator, all of these different people. And he basically tasks them to get together and make a documentary about going through all of the stuff from this murder case and trying to bring back up this cold case and figure out who done it. There was so many characters, it was very convoluted. There was a lot of mixed media, but it didn't make sense and it didn't all connect. And it just felt like a lot. And then the conclusion and the resolution was just totally out of left field. And I didn't think it was at all a good resolution. I felt like my theory of what happened was way better than what actually happened. And it just felt chaotic, and it was too long, and everybody had these little petty vendettas against each other, and it just didn't feel like it had a whole lot of point to it. And I found it very hard to keep up with both the physical version because of all of the different types of mixed media as well as all the POVs, but then also on the audio side either. I felt like even having them both, I couldn't keep up. So if you like those kind of messy puzzles, then maybe you'll like this book. I know I have heard a lot of people that did genuinely enjoy it. It just wasn't for me. Next we have First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston, another book of the month. And I saw this on, I think this was on the Goodreads Choice Awards, and I've seen it on, I think, Book of the Month finalists for Book of the Year. I don't get it. I don't understand. I couldn't tell you much of anything that happened in the book other than I know it's one of those things where it's a woman in hiding and she has a new identity and she has to live under this new identity, but she doesn't really know why or the purpose, and she might have to change her identity, and it's part of this whole larger piece of the puzzle, and she's just one tiny part of it, and she's trying to figure out how she fits into everything else that's going on. I know that's very vague, but I feel like I can't give a better synopsis without giving it away. It was just very boring. It was very boring, and I didn't like any of the characters, and it felt ridiculous, and the way the characters interacted was just very odd. I didn't like the writing style at all, and I feel really bad because I really wanted to read this one, and I not only got the Book of the Month copy, I also used an Audible credit for it, so I was extra annoyed about that. But this one just really didn't work for me, and it had a very anticlimactic ending, and yeah, I don't really see the hype with this one, but obviously there's a lot of people that do. The last 2-star book I'm going to talk about is Darling Girls by, what's her name? Sally Hepworth. I'm done with Sally Hepworth. I'm not going to read any more. I did read one that was maybe 3 stars, but I have given her books 1 and 2 stars respectively, and I've DNF'd one. So I just think I'm done with Sally Hepworth. She doesn't write thrillers, and I think that's one of my big vendettas they are listed as thrillers and they are advertised as thrillers, but they're really family dramas. I feel like it already leaves a bad taste in my mouth knowing that these are mismarketed books. Like, don't market a book a certain way to get people to read it. Just make sure it's a good book that people want to read. This was about 3 foster sisters that were all in the same foster home as children, and there was some, abusive stuff going on. Now they're adults and they have to go back to this foster home to solve the mystery of what happened to, I think, the foster mother. I didn't like any of the 3 girls. They all were just messy, underdeveloped characters. The synopsis in the beginning of the book painted this picture like this was this terrible, brutal place where there was all this torturous, horrible things happening. Yes, there was some psychological stuff. Yes, the woman was probably a narcissist, but in the grand scheme of abusive books that I've read, this was cake. And so I feel like there was this big buildup, and then when they actually told the story, it wasn't as awful as it originally was made out to be, and so that was kind of anticlimactic. And then there was just a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of middle extra things that weren't needed. Like, I felt like they were so indecisive. They'd be like, oh, let's go to the house. No, let's not. Oh, let's go back tomorrow. Okay, we need to go look at this house. Oh no, I can't be here. Oh, okay, I'm gonna come back. Like, there was just so much back and forth, and the characters didn't seem real. They didn't seem very well developed. And I feel like Sally Hepworth was trying to make them so vastly different that she gave them these kind of out there personas. And I think that she was doing that so that people wouldn't confuse the characters, but it just made them seem unrealistic. And then the ending and the actual resolution was so dumb. And one of the things that I hate when domestic thrillers do. And I felt like it was such a cop-out, and there was so many other ways that the book could have ended. Man, I know I said 2 stars, but when I'm talking about it now, it's kind of sounding 1 star-ish. So I might actually change that on Goodreads. We'll see. All right, those are all of the 2-star books I'm gonna talk about. Now we're gonna talk about the 3 1-star books that I read this year. The first book that I gave 1 star to is The Rainbow by Carly Shabowski, and I read this for a Bookish Jeopardy game that I was playing in the Facebook book club that I'm a part of, and so I couldn't DNF it. I had to read it so I could get the points for Jeopardy, and boy was that a labor of love. I found this on Kindle Unlimited because the prompt was a book with a rainbow. So the title is The Rainbow, so that fit the prompt. This was so poorly written. There was so many grammatical errors. There was so many misspellings. And this book couldn't decide if it was a historical fiction, if it was fantasy, if it was YA, if it was fiction, if it was nonfiction, if it was romance. Like, this book could not figure out what it was, and I couldn't figure out what it was. It was kind of about this girl who's going through her grandmother's things and finds love letters from World War II. And there's these other flashbacks to like the Holocaust era, but there's also this magical realism element, and there's also this really creepy relationship between a homeless man and a child. And there's this magical rainbow scarf, and I don't even know how that played into it, but literally nothing happened. Like, there was all of these different subplots and all of these different strange things smushed together in a book, and then nothing happened. All I can think is that Kindle Unlimited got one of the edited copies and not the final version, because there was like glaring errors. But then also the story wasn't cohesive, and like I said, the book didn't know what it was. The next 1-star book I'm going to talk about is No One Can Know by Kate Alice Marshall, and I also finished this one because I was part of a discussion in my friend Gwen's Patreon. So I was on the book discussion with other night owls talking about this book, and that is the only reason I finished it. And honestly, I was very close to messaging Gwen and saying, nope, I can't finish this. I will be part of the discussion if you want, or I won't, but I can't finish it. I pushed through and made myself finish it, and I honestly wish I didn't. It made me feel icky. There was a lot of things in this book that just gave me the ick, but I still joined the discussion. I was still able to pull out things to discuss about the book, and I understand why people like this book. I just did not at all. It's a married couple who moves into this house that's abandoned, and people died in it. I think it's the woman's, I think her parents died in it when she was little. Yeah, okay, so this girl and her 2 siblings lived in the house with her parents. The parents died and they were removed from the house. They still own the house together. So this one of the siblings decides to go back with her husband and fix it up and live in it. And it's never really clear as to why that happened. There was a lot of things, and I thought that we were specifically not being given information because we were gonna figure it out later, but no, there was just so many holes in the story and holes in why things happened. There's just a lot of things that were just never talked about again. And I heard a lot of people talking about this and saying, oh, trigger warning for satanic rituals. No, there's literally one page of the book where some teenagers from the town go and they paint like a symbol on the side of the house. And then it's never even mentioned again. Like, that's not even a part of the book. But like, the author had to throw in every single cliche imaginable about a haunted house in a small town with siblings who don't get along. I was bored. I didn't care. I felt the ick with a lot of the things that the author had characters say and do. I liked the book What Lies in the Woods, and that's why I was pretty surprised at not liking this book, but I think I also went in with too high expectations because I gave What Lies in the Woods 4 stars. I do have her most recent book from Book of the Month. What is it, A Killing Cold or something? I am gonna give it one more try, but if I don't like that one, then Kate Alice Marshall will not be on my shelf again. And then last, we have my least favorite book of the year, and that was Good Girls Don't Die by Christina Henry. And I read this one for the Sleep When I'm Dead book club. I think it was the pick last January. And it seemed like there was people in that book discussion that enjoyed the book, but a lot of us really didn't. This is another book that wasn't really sure what it was. It was written in 3 parts, and it was almost this weird meta simulation. I don't know. So at the beginning of this book, I thought it was one thing, and then by the end, it was something completely different. And it felt very reminiscent of multiple other YA dystopian books that have come out in the past 10 to 15 years. But you could tell that the author was trying to put like a different twist on it, but it just really didn't work. And the ending was just completely ridiculous. Like, I was just laughing reading it because it was so off the wall and so ridiculous. It's just one of those moments where you finish a book and you're like, I don't even know what I read. It had weird out there characters. There was a ton of characters in the 3 different parts and they were all different. I think I kind of know where the author was trying to go, but it just really didn't. One of the most ridiculous books and ridiculous plots that I've ever read. Okay, there you have it. My worst books of 2024. Personally, I love watching these videos because I think it's just as interesting to see what people dislike as it is to see what they loved. So please let me know down in the comments if you've read any of these books, and if so, what did you think of them? If you haven't read any of these books, you might be better off, or maybe some of the things I talked about sound like things that you really like in books, and maybe you want to give it a try. Please hit that subscribe button, it really helps out my channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!